Hey everyone, welcome to part 3 of the yet to be named podcast.
I think
Still,
yeah.
or are we finally decided?
Well, we might call it discrimination in government, but we do have to discuss that. So
It's big
not
time.
sure yet.
Who knows where it could go in this part?
Previously, we discussed we did an entire part on the Patriot Act and the LGBT Act.
Yeah.
That's we brought up little bits.
We
of
touched
it
on it.
That was in part 2.
Part
and
2.
then part 1.
In part 1, we just talked about the difference between being discriminated against and being offended by discrimination.
Just looking to be,
Yeah.
just looking,
Like
to,
looking for trouble.
to be offended when you're not actually being discriminated.
Which
Right.
is interesting because we bring up all these things, right? Like we bring up the Patriot Act, the LGBT, right? And you could see why someone would like look for reasons to be
Well,
offended.
just the guards up, right?
Yeah.
You just
Well,
anyways.
yeah, but I don't know. I don't know if the Patriot Act and
No.
these acts in Russia.
Mhm.
I don't know if we can say that people are just being offended when they're not being
No,
discriminated
'cause they
against.
are
I think
being
they are being
discriminated
discriminated against.
And,
Yeah.
No, I'm
yeah,
saying
but-
it's events like these where people feel like they can easily
Yeah.
get this because it can
I know what you
escalate
mean.
so quickly,
It's
right?
stuff like this that leads to people going in with the mentality that they're going to be discriminated against,
yeah.
and then whenever the smallest thing happens, then they
Then
feel
they-
like
Because
they're
they have that whole
discriminated against.
afterthought process in their head, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Like you
yeah.
don't just wake up one day and just
Exactly.
think we're going to assimilate an entire culture into it. It's a building
So-
thing with whatever growing it is, right?
And back in
Yeah.
part 1, we just brought up the idea of the American Constitution maybe being outdated, maybe needed to be updated, or even at first we thought we might, start over, but now we're starting to feel like maybe we should modernize it in a way.
We gotta
We
do
expanded
more.
on that in part 2.
Hey,
Yeah.
that was expanded on part 2, and now for
You
part
want
3.
to introduce us again, please?
Yeah. So
We got whole new people for
whole new 3.
Change the cast entirely.
it's all Jag Devils.
We still have our special person over there, Jagdev.
Oh, he's not even a guest now. Wow.
No, special person's better
His
than
status
guest.
got progressively
That's fair.
worse.
and he's providing a little bit. I want to say a couple of words right before we.
Our super.
Our biggest fan, Jake.
Still out of it. Still out of
This,
it.
He's a good guy. You should talk to him sometime.
Yeah, he's got some pretty.
I will do
And
the
ladies,
guy,
he's single.
That is our random segment of possible music.
And,
every
we got,
three podcasts that we will continue
We got
to do.
Gannett, Jason, Joey, and me, Priyanshu, over here for that part 3. In truth, we're just supporting Jagdev right now. Really, like we're not even here. Like we're just supporting Jagdev. Like he's the base of the chair, and we're the 4 legs right now.
Hey,
That's what
guys, I got an anonymous question on Ask FM saying we should stop laughing on the podcast.
Hey,
I'm all laughing.
Fuck that!
Zip your damn
Dude,
mouth.
no. Since I'm new to the podcast, I'd like to point out when I heard the first one, I thought there was too much laughing as well.
Oh.
But I'm a complete victim.
But you gotta say, it's like,
completely gone against what my
Going-
previous thoughts were.
We
because
will-
I was just laughing.
We
my ass
will
off.
attempt in the future
it's funny how
to laugh quietly or so you don't notice.
Wow, we really gotta put up our acts for this.
At times
podcast.
it can be difficult.
Guys, it's just funny.
Like
how,
we can talk about intellectual things, but we can't laugh.
No, some people are like, you gotta make it more funny and more stuff. But some people are like, keep it nice. And
Well, I
serious.
think it could be
Well,
funny, but just like
Yeah,
But
they
it's
don't
like-
want to
that doesn't
laugh.
mean you have to like burst.
You know what?
out
You
laughing
watch
every
TV and there's a damn laugh track.
I think.
Yeah,
I really.
Can you be honest and say you like the laugh track? Like you yourself
That's
said.
fair. That's fair.
No, but look here, like
We're reminding
we're
you that you
friends.
need to laugh.
Yeah, no, I think because what it is we're just kids, like,
And we're
having
friends, like-
conversations, right?
Like,
If
like-
we're laughing, it makes you laugh. Well, it makes you more
Man,
likely to laugh and laugh.
Fine, if we're 45,
And you know what? This
maybe.
isn't even fake laughing. We're actually
Yeah.
just laughing.
Like, we're just
Yeah.
we're enjoying it. Like
Anyways, it's been 5 minutes. We should probably
Wow,
start talking about what we meant to
okay.
talk about.
no, 4 minutes, guys. Anyways, so
Let's just wait till
so
5
our
minutes.
good friend
Allah.
Jason wanted to start us off
Yeah,
with
we're
Yeah.
going to expand
a slight
on the
bombshell.
LGBT
And
and
Russia.
the situation in Russia right
I
now
had
for
an
that
article
community.
which I will assure you Joey will post on
And-
the website
and-
or
Yeah.
wherever. he
I
Just
will
some
say
of
right
that
now,
stuff.
this is the supposed first time any of us are hearing it, but you, right? You wanted this to
Okay,
be
well, there's
very-
a lot of things I want to touch on.
Yeah,
but
there's just one bombshell within.
This is one
the
bombshell
numerous
within it, or is this
statistics.
just
Yeah,
the start?
I'll
Yeah.
get to that.
All right, here we go.
So basically, it's an article from Grantland, basically on an editorial that Harvey Fierstein, a very famous
Our boy.
Broadway performer,
guys,
made in the
remember
New York Times, basically saying that America should boycott the 2014 Sochi Olympics Am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah,
I hope so.
Okay.
Sochi.
Okay, and it's because of Russia's latest reforms on their what he calls is a war on homosexuality, and basically what it touches on is
Why does everything have to be a war now these days? Like everything is some sort of war, but
okay, well-
but really like the definition of a war is different.
Okay.
Continue.
so basically just here are some of the laws that are there. First of all, homosexuality is banned, or it is
Just straight up.
illegal.
So it's like, yeah,
So that's just the basis. And then in recent months, they've had a bill which was voted 436-0 unanimously in favor. This is the Russian parliament, by the way, in favor of banning any type of homosexual propaganda, which includes you can't say anything on the internet, in a classroom, just even on the street about homosexuality in any nice sense. And just on a personal perspective, 4 of the 5 people in this room right now were at the Macklemore concert last night.
Wow.
He has a song about that. He
transitioned
literally would not allowed to perform in Russia.
Just
Just-
because he
But it's not
himself
even
has.
that.
just for the 1 out of 5 who didn't go to the Macklemore concert, my favorite band has a song about homosexuality, so they wouldn't be able to go either.
Okay,
So
well,
just
I
thought-
was using
just
an
thought I'd share
example.
that.
There's
Wait,
probably a shit ton
are
of
we talking about Make It
examples.
Stop?
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah, good song.
Okay, and then also, it isn't just like a petty crime, it's criminalized. Like, you would go to jail for it. And
this isn't jaywalking.
another one is anyone part of a non-traditional marriage or single isn't allowed to adopt a Russian kid. And this isn't if you live in Russia. If you live in Russia or you're just trying to adopt a Russian kid and you live in some other country.
Man, those Russian kids are just in
So
prime.
if you're single,
Prime
if you're remarried, if you're obviously if you're a homosexual couple, it's illegal to adopt any Russian kid. And
So if you're outside of Russia, you
here's
can't.
something that I intentionally didn't tell anyone here beforehand because I just find it so sickening that I want
Let's
their
hear it. I've been
immediate
waiting
All
for
reaction.
right, here we go.
If you're a tourist in Russia and you don't have to be gay if you are suspected. If you are suspicious of being
Oh my
gay,
God.
you will get
Really?
a 2-week sentence in jail, in
Really?
Russian jail, as a
What?
tourist.
See, is that not hearsay?
Yeah, exactly.
Suspected of being
Like,
gay? And this
The article
Well, they
even
do that.
cites recently there were 4
Whoa.
Dutch tourists arrested for being suspected of promoting homosexuality to children.
God.
And the writer of this article, I think he puts it really well when he says right after that, at this point they could legally arrest the Pope
If
if
he
he were
visited Russia.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
because he's starting to
Because
promote
he's
homosexuality.
like, yeah, he's what was it? Pope Francis says that he's accepting.
Well,
not
I don't know,
accepting.
fully accepting,
Well,
but he's starting to move towards
yeah.
it at
Yeah.
least. Yeah.
It's nice to see that like
At least he's
one of the
making
main religions that were so against homosexuality is just starting to
is making some strides.
But it's also funny that, but if the religion, we're saying that the Pope is the messenger. I'm not fully on the Roman Catholic religion, but what does the Pope really represent? Is he like
Well, he's like the leader. He's like the king of the religion.
the king of the religion? But
the number
does,
one.
does he?
God's
But by
recommendation.
being Pope, does he have any added like spiritualness with God or whatever?
Well,
I don't
That's
know.
He's just
probably
named as
the
the leader?
implication.
Yeah.
Well, but, like,
assuming.
So, anyways, it's nice to see that.
Yeah, like any priest, I guess. I don't know. Like I'm atheist. Don't ask me to answer these. I come from a Roman Catholic family, but
That's
I'm
the only
atheist.
reason because we're
I
not.
don't. I don't really read up on the stuff though. So.
Anyways,
And yeah, just
that was holy.
But
shit.
before I get these guys' reactions to that, I would also like to point out that recent polls have shown 15% of the LGBT community in Russia have been have admitted to having been assaulted in the last 10 months just for being gay.
Yeah, and we talked in part 2 of the Patriot Act being
This is basically
discrimination. This is definitely,
Yeah.
and I think this is
More than discrimination.
Yeah.
this
More
is
direct.
even
It's almost
further,
worse.
and
This is worse, I think.
it's ridiculous. I mean, hearsay about something that really I think we can all
Someone
agree
who
on
isn't
shouldn't
even
be
a
illegal
citizen,
anyways.
Yeah. And for someone who isn't even a citizen of that country, you're just visiting there.
That's just taking full
I mean-
advantage of your country's like
Like,
jurisdiction.
if that's what they do to tourists, imagine what they do to the real citizens that are forced to be under that law.
And I mean, people are being assaulted now. And I mean, sure, you can argue the people of Russia may be discriminatory against the community, but if you have a government that is flat out discriminating against the community,
Because they've set a good
then
example.
that's never going to change. People, exactly, that's never going to change. People see it in their government, people see it on the news, people start believing in that sort of thing,
it's
right?
the propaganda of it.
I know people think that, you know, you talk about our special guest Jagdev had found an article by a
Who's that guy?
we will try to post all these articles if we can remember all of them. We are quoting
Oh,
them.
yeah.
I think it might have been the same one.
Oh, but
the Olympic one, yeah.
anyways, regardless, he
No, we
said
didn't talk about the Olympics yet.
yeah,
we
we
did.
did.
We mentioned it.
Apparently we did.
When
The article's about
Jason brought it
whether
up, saying we should boycott
we should
the
or
Russian
shouldn't
Olympics.
boycott
the Olympics.
Oh,
Yes.
and then
Yes.
that
The same article
Are
talked
you-
about what
You
we
guys
just talked
think that like at the UN, where all the members are just meeting, like, or all the the leaders, the prestigious leaders of countries meet, do you think they ever discuss these things?
about. I don't know.
Do you think they
Maybe-
just
I
get
think-
Vladimir
I
sit them
think-
down and like talk about these things openly?
This might be way off, but I think it's entirely plausible that you could see representatives of countries other than Russia talking behind closed doors in places in the UN, just having like kind of gossipy kind of conversations about that. Well, no, I see that as kind of a human thing.
That's
that
fair.
people would
But I think
do.
it does need to be discussed at the UN. I mean, we do have.
It should be.
I
So,
mean,
like,
we
the
do try to
Geneva
unite
Convention
our,
where
we
we-
Yeah.
try to unite our
I mean,
nations. We try to.
There's
Yeah,
tons
but
of things that
the UN,
UN
yeah.
tries to do with
It's
civil
trying
rights.
to guarantee human rights
Right.
for everyone, right? So I mean,
The problem is, if a powerful country like Russia ends
Yeah.
up doing something extreme like that,
there's not really.
they don't jump to try and stop it.
Yeah.
I feel like it doesn't get handled like it should according to the principles.
Yeah.
definitely.
But like I was saying before, you know, this guy Frey, I think his name was Frey. He was
Fry.
Frey. He
The,
was
the
com-
actor author.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Actor / author.
As meant by our special person,
As our
Jagdev.
person. would
Okay, it's an author and actor, alright? Continue.
be.
he was comparing the prosecution of the LGBT community in Russia right now to the prosecution of Jewish people in Nazi Germany. And people always talk about Nazi Germany, and we always, you know, we stop and say, like, how could the people let this happen? The people of Germany.
Right.
But the people of Germany,
They're scared.
they weren't, scared, sure, but that's
Well, I mean,
that's
like,
more
I mean,
like the Patriot Act.
You
But
know,
I
they
think
were
the
in a
people of
worse
Germany,
state. They were in a
yeah.
worse state, right? Like
But
they
I mean-
needed hope.
yeah, okay. But anyway, not the point I'm trying to make, but yes, true. But I mean, the people of Germany, they're not bad people, right? They spent their whole lives hearing from government officials, hearing in newspapers and propaganda, etc., that Jewish people were like the devil, right? And a lot of German people had never even met a Jewish person, right? And they're not bad people. They just spend their lives in a place where they're being told something so many times. We're probably guilty of the same thing. We don't even realize
Yeah,
it.
we probably have lots
right?
of intrinsic
Exactly.
beliefs that might be incorrect.
Exactly, and they just hear it so many times that it
Well-
becomes just an accepted norm.
They wouldn't be
You grow up
considered
with it.
intrinsic
Well,
because
intrinsically,
it's people forcing it on.
I know,
you.
intrinsically occurring.
You know
based
again
on
it
the
meant.
educational platform. Do you want to get my grammar somewhere?
Hey, well,
Okay.
you're giving misinformation. That's all I'm saying.
I'm sorry, Jason.
Anyways, but my point is in Russia, the situation's only going to get worse if this legislation keeps passing, if we have all this anti-LGBT and no pro-LGBT
Yeah.
propaganda, and people are going to start being against if they aren't already, against the LGBT community,
Yeah.
because they've grown up in a world, when you're young, you're very impressionable, they've grown up in a world where they've been told that these people are bad and they shouldn't be allowed in our country.
Right.
That's essentially what they're being told right now.
And the more you try to prevent it, the less people there'll be showing it, and the more it'll be like the type of instance with German people and Jewish people.
Exactly, and no one's...
They'll exist less in Russia, and so it'll be harder to relate to for people, and they'll become more prejudiced.
Yeah, and no one's getting killed yet, but you know what? People are getting assaulted.
So
People are getting thrown in jail.
Clothes.
People are getting exactly. People are getting thrown in jail based on hearsay. This is like McCarthyism mixed with Nazi Germany. It's honestly.
That just sounds horrible.
And then, you know,
he has a point.
This boycott of Olympics is at what point do we step in? What point do we say, you know?
But here's my question to you: does boycotting the Olympics really mean jack shit?
A lot.
I think we need to do something.
We need to walk into the
which is bad because we shouldn't interfere, but then we still need to do things. But boycotting the Olympics, no one cares.
The
Olympics are meaningless.
The Olympics go back to the Patriot. It's such a pride thing to have the Olympics in the country, right?
I don't believe this bullcrap that the Olympics brings countries together.
Before I make that a rebuttal for that, I would like to point out that in that article they talked about possible alternatives because people had the opinion close to Joey's that maybe you're not doing all that much by boycotting the Olympics. And there's actually been a planned pride parade on the day of the opening of the Olympics in Sochi.
So who says they won't get arrested?
They will get arrested.
They very well get arrested. You know, I think
that's the point.
I think maybe
they're trying to do some sort of protest.
I think
that isn't a boycott.
Because I mean, do people do consider the Olympics in this high?
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, but you know what? People have boycotted the Olympics before to no effect. Mostly America and then the Soviet Union, and no one cares. Like it's not it's not like, oh my God, the Americans didn't go to the Olympics. Oh my, we better change our entire way of thinking. No one it's not going to do anything.
Well, that's not.
It doesn't.
They
I understand they're
expect
trying to send a message, but it's not really sending a message, in my opinion.
I think
it's like, one less person to compete against.
You're assuming that this is a one-step process. The whole idea of boycotting something is to bring enough attention to it that people start thinking about
but
it.
I think the attention has already
a larger international uproar.
I think that's
did you know of those laws? Like I didn't until like 2 days ago.
Well, but that's because the laws are relatively new, correct?
Yeah, but I feel like if they're
week?
not, well, not like last week, like in
A month ago.
Yeah,
a month, I think.
If
Max.
I'm someone who watches the news, I never saw that or anything. I try to keep track with what's going on in the world, and I hadn't heard that except for this one article.
Tries to keep track on what's going on in the world, yet watches the news. Anyway, sorry.
That is some of the I got work today humor we will be having on the show.
Shut up, Gary, you said it wrong.
Assault!
Beef has arisen. People are starting to throw things. It might get a little ugly.
This argument's getting heated.
So I will post a link on the website, igotworktomorrow.com. Obviously, with these articles, I will post the Wikipedia. I mean, you guys could just Google; it's not that hard. But I will post a Wikipedia
we'll post
link
it anyways,
for
'cause we're nice
McCarthyism,
people.
just so
Yeah.
you get that. And
Were we going to talk about trying to bring it back together?
yeah, we did want to wrap. We did want to circle back to what we started talking about. I don't know if we.
But I don't think we have enough time to without making it entire. Okay.
Don't worry. We got 7 minutes.
We can squeeze it in.
Yeah, 7 minutes is a lot of time.
You know the whole.
That's
I
what they all
think
say.
just
We only got 7
to
minutes
wrap
to
up
say
the situation in Russia, I think we can agree it's a very bad situation, and I think unless something is done, then
It's gonna keep
it's
happening.
going to keep getting worse. I think we probably disagree on what needs to be done. I think talks in the UN, for instance, would be a much better step than boycotting the Olympics. We can argue more about that off air.
Just to clarify, it's a very poor situation.
Yeah. What did I say?
Bad situation.
All right.
Shut
what
up,
the fuck is
Jason.
No, we got this.
I wanted to pull that dude.
I thought I said like it's a good situation or something. I'm like, what the fuck?
Well, let's segue.
Actually, you might actually be able to say bad situations.
Pretty sure
Hey,
you can.
Jason.
Yeah.
Jason, we
Anyways,
get it. You're gonna
we're
try-
gonna wrap back to how we started.
Be a
Hey,
douchebag.
Jason,
We're just going back to how we started in part 1.
We're gonna
Jason,
segue. I
Jason,
love that. I love that term. We're gonna
We'll talk about it
segue.
later. Don't
We
worry.
get it. You're good at grammar. Okay, let's go.
So segue.
Anyways,
It's not like a skill. It's just.
we're just gonna loop back. We're gonna talk. We were talking about
7
sexism,
minutes, guys. Yes.
and we were talking about just basically discrimination in our
Well, it's
society.
5 now.
In North American society, right? When are we actually discriminated against, and when are we maybe getting offended
We're
a
getting
little bit too
offended
easy.
for
The
no
culture of
real-
being offended. We read an article about that in that history class we're always talking about. So I mean, there's another example
Greg.
beyond the one I brought up, which was the sexist
computer
quotations article, where many men and women commented poor things, and I believe it's been taken down. Many men and women were saying, "Hey, this is a huge overreaction." It was anger over an advertisement for tech people, which said your girlfriend doesn't understand you. The idea of sexism there. There's another example too I heard about this morning.
The Subaru example, which
yes.
offensive.
Okay.
Which we thought was actually
Sedan-
discrimination. We think
the
that's going too
sedan-
far.
the
The
sedan.
idea of car crash
Sedan,
and your
not
title of the
sedan.
report is
Women driving
strikes again. I think we can agree that that's probably offensive.
That's definitely more,
especially in
an
the
extreme
context of
point.
people dying as well.
Yeah.
It's just very disrespectful.
Not appropriate.
As well.
And so, and here's another example I heard about this morning. Oprah apparently was in a store somewhere in the Ukraine. I just heard this by word of mouth, so it might not actually be in the Ukraine. I'll try to find a proper news article and post it. She was shopping for something, and she asked to see a certain purse, and the attendant said, first of all, this was a $35,000 purse,
Right.
just for context. But the attendant who clearly didn't know she was Oprah, or he
Right.
wouldn't have said this, said, "Oh, I won't get that for you. It's too expensive."
Yeah.
Now, Oprah thinks this is a race thing. Is it a race thing?
No,
I mean,
but we
if you
need a little bit more context. Like,
Why do you need more context?
Was Oprah dressed in like just a normal everyday clothes?
well, she
or was
always dresses in normal clothing.
No,
What
but
else is she
like,
gonna
no,
wear?
but did it look like that she was of an upper
Well,
business
when you
class?
see any upper business class people don't buy $35,000 purses, Priyanshu. You have to
Fine,
be loaded,
rich,
Yeah.
right?
rich,
Like loaded, like really loaded.
like Oprah loaded.
Okay,
I
but
just
see,
don't
here's the
think-
point. Had he known she was
Well,
Oprah, obviously he would have
yeah.
known she had the money.
Like if you're a businessman, and
Like-
people ask to see purses, and maybe initially you're like, okay, well I'll show them the purse.
Yeah.
And the majority of the people don't buy the purse. It's not prejudice if he assumes that most people that want to see them are just
Exactly.
looking aesthetically at them and not considering purchasing.
I mean, if he didn't see her with like a Bluetooth thing in her ear and like a security guard, maybe he just assumed
Yeah.
that she was an average person. I mean, if me or you or I,
Jason.
anyways, Jason, we need
Resident
you.
expert.
Walked into that store, we would most definitely
You
be
or
told. We would most definitely be told
Right.
that purse was too
Too
expensive
expensive
for
for
us.
us, yeah.
All right, and maybe we're rich young people. We could argue it's age discrimination.
Yeah.
We
Oh,
could
it
argue
was in
that's because I'm
Switzerland, by the
white.
way.
Oh, sorry.
It's in Zurich.
Sorry, that was my mom actually just heard it on the news, so she got the country wrong. Or we could argue it was because Gannett's Indian.
Yeah.
But I mean, is it maybe just because the guy assumed,
Yeah.
not because of race?
Because
Because I mean, most people aren't gonna buy $35,000 purses. Like
Well,
that's a little bit ridiculous.
I
right?
feel like he should have to have. Well, this is completely beside from race. He should have some sort of backing on why he said she shouldn't. Like,
Well, no, but I mean,
Well,
tons
well,
of
you
people.
forget about that.
well, how is he supposed to distinguish between people he should show that person shouldn't?
By
I feel
how
like-
rich they look. I don't think it has anything to do with why.
yeah,
why
I'm
does it have
not
to be
saying
about race?
I'm saying it has nothing to do with race. I'm like it could, but that's not my point.
Yeah.
I guess
My point is, what did he use to determine that she wasn't rich
Well,
enough?
you have to ask him that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess
But I mean-
the whole other argument is how he determines
Next
what wealth
week's
is.
special guest.
I don't.
all
I
the way
highly
from
doubt.
Switzerland.
I mean, I find it absolutely ridiculous that that this guy living in Switzerland, very forward country, right, would honestly think that African American people can't have money. I don't think that that's what this guy was trying to insinuate. I don't think it's what he was thinking in his head. I'm sure he's met plenty of people of that ethnicity who have had plenty of money.
Right.
I think he just saw someone, didn't realize how much money she had,
And
thought
said-
she was just an ordinary person,
Yeah.
and said, "Well, ordinary people aren't going to buy
This purse.
$35,000 purses, right?
Yeah.
It's not like it was a $200 purse.
Yeah.
It was a $35,000 purse.
I could see maybe
right?
why if she felt that she was in a position to buy that purse,
And
she'd be a
also-
little aggravated that he didn't show
Yeah,
it to
but
her.
to say it's a race, I mean,
Yeah,
she might
it's-
be annoyed that he doesn't know who she is because she's
Yeah.
Oprah.
Yeah.
But I mean, to say that it's racism is a little bit much.
It's a
Especially when we have real examples of racism
Right.
that aren't, racism, sexism, real examples that aren't shown. They aren't in the public
Publicized.
consciousness,
Yeah.
right? That actually need to be addressed and changed, and instead we're complaining about stupid things like a joking advertisement, which really doesn't seem that offensive.
Exactly. Like
and women are writing on this tech blog, so these are tech women writing that they're really not that offended by this advertising.
And it's like people are just jumping into situations where they think that they're being discriminated against when it's just context. It's just the progression of it.
And what it does is it takes away credibility from times when people are actually being discriminated
and
against.
it makes us fearful to speak. Just speak willingly and speak freely. Like it takes away from that.
You're worried you're going to offend someone without meaning to.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous. And
when these things are offensive or discriminatory, such as the Patriot Act, or such as the LGBT, I think we should recognize these things more forefront than we do these little incidentals.
Exactly.
Which generally don't seem to be racist, but it seems to be people confusing just general conversation with past events maybe in their lives or their ancestors' lives where they feel like they've been offended or degraded, which they have been.
Yeah. People tend to jump to conclusions now. I think that's what we're really trying to hit. Like, with this difference between discrimination and thinking that people jump to conclusions very easily.
And I'm going to say something very controversial right now.
Mm-hmm.
All right? And let me tell you this first of all. How should I explain this? All you guys jumping down my back. The Trayvon Martin case, I don't think that has anything to do with race. That's my opinion. Now, having said that, I think that the law, which because George Zimmerman is, and I think this is the correct decision, not that morally correct, it is the correct decision within the law, that George Zimmerman is technically innocent. Now, the problem here is that the law should not say that he's technically innocent. Right. The law should say that he should go to jail for murdering a kid.
But the way the law is done.
Yeah. So I don't think this is about race. I think people are trying too hard to make it about race.
And not about.
I would like to hear.
I think this is about the law. The law needs to change. That's my opinion.
Right.
Because the law needs to change. And I mean, you can say that in his mind he profiled him as being a criminal because he was black, right?
Right.
You can make that argument. The problem is we're never really going to be able to prove that either way. He might have seen a young white guy walking down the street in the same attitude. He may or may not have thought the same thing about him, right? We won't know, is my point. My point is it shouldn't even be a discussion. The law should... I mean, the other guy was unarmed, correct? And plain and simple, you shot a kid. Mm-hmm. Go to jail. The cops told you to stay in your car.
You didn't.
Go to jail.
Yeah.
Right? You called the cops. They told you to stay in the car. The cops don't give orders, right? But it's not like he found himself... I hate the self-defense argument because it's not like he was walking down the street and some guy just attacked him, right? He saw this guy. He wanted to stop him. He put himself in that situation. If he wasn't prepared to deal with getting into a fist fight and getting into those injuries, because he put himself in that situation... He already called the cops. Mm-hmm. They recommended he stay. He decided he wanted to be a hero.
Right.
All right. So then he better be prepared not to shoot the kid.
Right.
That's my opinion. Anyway, I don't think that he should get off on a self-defense, whatever you call it.
I would just... I guess I'm someone who does think it did have to do with race, but that's because I look at it in the frame of, well, what did he use to assume that he was up to no good? And which Joey's is saying we could never know. But I feel like, I don't know, I guess I'm one of those people who's maybe guilty of jumping to conclusions, but I feel like...
But here's the other issue.
What else did he have to really base his opinion off of other
the fact that he was a young man walking down the street.
And if you've watched the Barack Obama speech, he does discuss the fact that it is a little more than a stigma that people that belong to the African American race have in recent history been involved in a few more. Yeah.
And that,
which is not to say that we should profile people.
That's a general problem with the way people approach things, all right? Now, does that mean, I mean, it's hard... I mean, if you had seen... Here's the argument I heard, and I must admit it was on CNN, so, me, the anti-news network guy, but it was on CNN, and they made the argument, if it was an old black lady, do you think he would have shot her?
No.
Do you think he
not
would have
at
thought
all.
she was up to no good?
Not at
Still
all.
black.
Probably not.
Not at all.
Still black. So when does this become?
Well, I feel.
Is it just racism? Is it also age discrimination? Is it also sexism?
Well, I feel like that's how people make assumptions.
Exactly.
It's a combination of everything.
Yeah.
Maybe we shouldn't make these assumptions.
Well, we can't
maybe,
just say it was all race. You know, we can't maybe
but
just say
we
it was all
can't-
race.
I don't
then.
think
But
we
you
can
can't
ever
say it's
say-
not
We can't
at
ever-
all race.
Yeah, we
I
can
don't
say
think we
it's
can
not all
ever
race.
say whether or not it was race. We're not George Zimmerman. We'll
Yeah.
never be able to get into his head and know for sure.
All we can do
Alright?
is learn from these things, right?
Yeah, and here's my point. I don't think it's about race because I don't think he was acquitted because Trayvon Martin was black. I don't think that had anything to do with it.
Okay.
I think he was acquitted because the law is stupid. That's why I think this is not about race.
What about law?
Because if it was about race, then if he had shot a white guy, and this is an argument some people are making, I personally disagree with this argument. If it was about race, and if he had shot a white guy, then he would be in jail. That's the argument some people
I've
are
heard this
making,
argument
right?
as well.
I don't believe that argument. I believe that the people in court did their jobs. They did them to the best they could, and unfortunately, the law and what we think should happen morally are not in line with each other.
Well,
and that's what needs to change. The law needs to change to be in line with what we think should happen
And
morally.
when we consider this, like these conversations that we have where we feel like we don't want to offend anybody, but we also want to fairly treat people, I think the way, like this thought process or this discussion process, I think it happens a lot. At least it happens slightly in higher government. It's not that they sit there and think, oh, it has to be race. They definitely talk these things out. They definitely kind of look at it from as many angles as they can look at it from. And you know, I'm a person that thinks I do believe very highly in humanity, and I don't believe that. I don't really know where I'm going with this anymore, but I guess.
Okay.
I guess I think that. I don't know where I'm going with this. Let me just hear it.
Come on, think it through. Think it
Okay,
through.
I'll think it through. I'll get think it through. I just don't generally believe that there's so many people that go out with preconceived notions of racism and then bring
Or
it to
sexist
gunpoint and then finish it. Especially when people get, here's what I mean. Especially when people get so offended over the little that ad right. Especially when people they talk about it and discuss it so much because no one wants to be offensive and no one wants to be offended, right?
Yeah.
I don't think so many people are out there just looking to martyr people of different races for the sake of being racist. Right?
And there are people out there, and they do we do need to try to get our society to move on from this sort of discriminatory attitude, right? But I mean, at the same time, I think exploding over little things is part of the problem.
Right.
I think that doesn't help.
I think we should look more at bigger things.
Yeah.
And
we need to solve the big issues. You solve the big issues eventually. I mean, it's not going to happen overnight.
No.
Yeah, eventually then the small issues will stop happening.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And people will stop feeling as though they need to be worried about being discriminated against, and so they will stop feeling discriminated against when there wasn't intended to be.
The only reason you would think maybe someone's discriminating me is because you have an ulterior where someone of your whatever
you feel
was
as though you're
discriminated
prosecuted.
against.
Yes.
Yeah.
You feel as though something about you is generally prosecuted by the majority of society,
and you feel
or even
like the laws that uphold equality aren't defined enough or strong enough to protect you, right?
So when I see the Trayvon Martin case, it outrages me, right? And I think the law needs to change. But honestly, it doesn't outrage me based on race. There are a lot of things that I see that outrage me based on racism. That's not one of them.
Right.
I don't think it is.
Based on just the law.
I think the law is stupid, and you guys know I'm an anti-gun guy, right? So that's just what it is, right?
Yeah. I would agree with you. I'm also one as well.
All right. Well, we are at 33 minutes, so we do try to keep these short.
See, this could have been part 4, but
part 3. There is more stuff I think we'd like to talk about, especially with the original idea of feminism and what is feminism and what isn't feminism. But unfortunately, I think we're gonna have to cut it short. We may touch upon it on a later episode at some point.
Right.
This is once you get to 4 parts. It's
But this is going to be the conclusion.
We'll definitely segue to something else prior to coming back.
You really like saying that, don't you?
I love it. Just try it.
I'm not a huge fan of words.
Just say segue and then discuss something.
The words sound that great. Anyways, we're going to wrap it up.
Glad you guys.
We'll get some beatboxing in here for you.
Before we finish with box, if you guys have any comments or inquiries,
suggestions.
We
have 2 email addresses: comments at igotworktomorrow.com, suggestions at igotworktomorrow.com,
and we got Facebook page, Twitter.
Facebook page, and Twitter page. You can always go to our
everything,
website.
Whatever you need, we got it.
Good price.
I got work tomorrow.
I
Hashtag I got work
like an onion ring.
IGotWorkTomorrow.com. You can find all of the stuff we just mentioned, including any articles based on the podcast and the podcast tabs.
Wants to say something.
I would really like to start a movement, and I hope that
Oh God!
people who listen to this also want this movement in which we have
Just
Gannet
shut up.
freestyle to end every one of our episodes. Just putting it out there.
We
putting it on
maybe
record.
200 likes on the Facebook
I
page.
think
Wink, wink.
then we'll start. You know, my Facebook page doesn't even have 200 likes, so I don't think we're going to get But yeah,
anyway.
do hit my Facebook page up if you guys are free
Anyways,
to.
Also, we are on iTunes now. You can find the
iTunes
link
official,
to us on iTunes on our website. Or you could just search I Got Work Tomorrow on iTunes and it'll actually come up. It's the only result.
Like,
Pretty good.
So
like,
please subscribe. We hope you enjoy. We're also on YouTube. You can find links for that there.
like,
or you can
subscribe,
always
follow us
listen
up.
on our webpage, IGotWorkTomorrow.com.
You know what,
So
just-
really,
just-
really long promotion, right?
Stalk the fuck out of them.
Take it easy.
Bye.
Why am I so cool?
Wiki fresh.